And we're live.
Hi. Hi, Tim. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Christelle. Hi, Tim.
So nice to meet you.
This time we actually are live. The last show I forgot to press the go live button, but I'm checking this time. You only ever do that once. I did it once with a podcast where I was interviewing somebody, and I had to say, I'm dreadfully sorry. I'm going to have to repeat the question because I forgot to press the record button on the podcast.
It's so easy, right? Especially with like people you want to get to know. You just start chatting and oh, it's time to go live.
That's amazing.
So, to people who have no idea who you are, can you describe your association with the gentleman's cardboard cutout behind you?
First of all, Tim, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm really excited. And Tim, rightly so, Mr. David Hasselhoff, I brought him along just for you. And I know later on in the show we will reveal that he's here. So I'm Nicole Osborne. I'm the founder of Lollipop Social. I'm a personal branding and social media coach. What this means, I work with business owners and I really help them increase their visibility and their voice and income actually from social media. Because we know what's like, we start our business and actually we just want to hide away and it feels just so icky, at least when you're kind of British, to talk about yourself and to sell yourself. But this is what you've got to do when you have a brand. So this is what I help people do with my program, Wunderstars. So thank you so much for having me. I shall reveal a little bit later where I've got a lovely, lovely David Hasselhoff here behind me. I imagine people might already guess, perhaps by my German accent. I don't know.
Hi,
James Sopp.
James, hello.
He said we're all here.
So clearly, as most people would have realised, you're clearly a British person who's got a psychological complaint that makes them believe they're German. Or there's actually another explanation. So can you describe where you grew up, what kind of environment it was, and how you ended up in London and running this wonderful social media business?
I shall do my best, Tim. Thank you. So I was born in former Eastern Germany, so literally behind the Iron Curtain. The wall came down in 1989. I was only 13 years old, so I had it all when I was growing up. And one thing I particularly remember is how much I wanted to go to an exotic beach and how much I wanted to have a fast car, because what we had in Eastern Germany, Eastern Europe, was exactly the opposite of that. So we had this thing in Eastern Germany for David Hasselhoff, because he really had this thing where he tapped into the moment where we wanted to be reunified between Eastern Germans and Western Germans. I remember my parents went onto the streets risking their lives to really for the wall to come down. And we managed to do that peacefully. And there was David Hasselhoff singing to us. So that's just very briefly about David Hasselhoff. Now, personally, I came over to England over 25 years ago. Oh my God, now Tim, it's nearly 25 years. And I went to stay here just for a year. I wanted to learn the language. I had my gap year before going to university. But then I met my now husband. And I thought, well, England is great. Got this lovely guy here. I might as well go to university over here. So I did, and I'm still here. And I must say, I absolutely adore living in London. It's such a multicultural city. Lots of Germans living over here. I don't know many. And it's also really close to going to Germany. It's very, very easy. So yes, so here I am, still in London. And I think you and I, we met at a fair amount of UK conferences, right? Even now, most recently, actually, in San Diego, social media marketing work. But yeah, it's such a happening city when it comes to social media marketing, digital marketing. So yeah, it's great to be here.
Well, I'm going to let Christelle ask a question because she's looking
I'm fascinated with your story, and I want to expand upon that because I'm such a story person and how people kind of evolve from one place to another. So what is a significant memory that you have from the wall coming down other than David Hasselhoff?
Yeah, so one thing, so there's a stereotype around it. Actually, a lot of it was true. So a lot of the houses in Eastern Germany were sort of very much grey and grey. I remember there wasn't much we could buy in the shops. And when I grew up, I know everyone in my school had like the same pair of trainers. Honestly, absolutely everyone. I'm not making this up. So I remember the wall came down. I watched it with my parents on TV. And I just couldn't believe my eyes. even though it had been something we'd been hoping for and fighting for so long, it just didn't seem real. So the next day, so we're walking, and the next day we kind of had the choice of, well, should we just drive over to Hamburg? It wasn't too far from where I lived, maybe sort of an hour and a half drive. So we got into our little Trabant, as you did in Eastern Germany. We packed it all up. And there we were driving to Hamburg, and all I can just remember are all these colors flowing at me, because I was so used to not having much in the shops and everything being a little bit grey that it was absolutely overwhelming. At the time, everyone who came over from Eastern Germany got some Western German money, so we could actually go shopping. And I don't even know what I bought. I just remember the feeling of overwhelm and having so much of everything and so many different choices. I remember clearly there's a food theme. I really love cornflakes. And in Eastern Germany, we had like one kind of cornflakes. I think we went to a supermarket and there was this whole shelf full of different cornflakes. Actually, pretty much like you would find in America now, where you're so nutritionally aware that you have like 100 different kinds. And yeah, it's just sheer overwhelm. Sheer overwhelm. That's the feeling I really remember. Elation and overwhelm.
Okay. Wow. And then when you came to the UK, what was a significant memory of the transition between Germany and the UK? What stands out to you?
So Tim will probably laugh at this a lot. So us Germans, we tend to be rather more direct than Brits. So when someone asks us a question and we want to say no, we will just say no, not think twice about it. And I remember when I went to university over here, that I really had to adjust my communication style, because if I went in there and just said no, well, no, why not? It's just not a thing to do. You know, you kind of sort of soft talk it a little bit, and you want to say no the first thing you say, oh, that's an interesting idea. You really do mean no. So it's that whole communication and softening it up. And Germans also speak in a very monotone voice. I'm clearly exaggerating now for the effect, but the Brits are like, oh, how are you doing? And, you know, it goes up and down a lot, our melodic, and I've adapted that now over the years. So I really remember struggling with that at first, because how we talk is so innate in us, right? I mean, you grow up with it, and then all of a sudden you kind of gently start adjusting it. And at the same time, I never really wanted to completely give up my German accent, but I find that when I go over to Germany, I come back, my clients always say, oh, Nicole, you sound a bit German at the moment, and you're rather direct for a while. I'm like, sorry, can't help it.
That's funny.
So, I mean, when you like, we're going off, and we're not talking about your business here, unfortunately.
We're fascinated with your story.
What would you say are the biggest differences between German people and British people, apart from obviously, and are there bigger differences in your mind between German and British people, and between British people and American people?
From
the language, obviously.
Juicy. All right, I'm going to be extremely diplomatic for the first part of your story, and simply say, because I've lived here now for so long, I've spent most of my adult life in England. I remember back the old German ways. It's different now. You know, everyone moves on every generation, right?
Yeah. So
I would certainly say, you know, classic stereotypes. It's a different sense of humor and the levels of directiveness. And I guess as Germans, we are known to be rather organized, get things done, be very structured. So I'm going to tap into those. In terms of Brits and Americans, that's interesting, right? I mean, I guess one thing I would always perceive is that a lot of Americans seem to have a lot oozing of confidence, which I think is brilliant. And you know, that real feeling everyone could become anything, and the sort of whole positivity, and I guess the sort of whole attitude to you know, service levels, that kind of thing. But again, there's a really gross generalization, right? It does truly always come down to the individual. So I just want to put that caveat on there, that I totally recognize that.
A little asterisk, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what would you guys say? I mean, you work well together as a Brit and an American. Where do you see your differences? If I may ask a question back, if I may be so cheeky.
No, you can't. So
okay. All right, that's fair enough.
No, that is not allowed. Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting because there are some things I think are similar between British and European people that aren't the same with people in the US. Obviously, it's probably the differences are accentuated because we speak the same languages, as they say, two countries divided by a common language. So, yeah, I mean, there is that positivity thing, though. That seems to be slipping a bit lately with the current political situation.
Fair enough, all right. I mean, everything going on.
I was going to say that, yeah. In some ways, it seemed very. James said he loves the bluntness of the Germans, but the cheekiness of Brits. And that's true. I enjoy that too. And it's funny because half of my family is German, and I would say they're very blunt and very, I don't know that they have much of a sense of humor, actually. They're very kind of monotone, and I don't know you would say that's true across. I mean, Nicole's not like this at all.
It's funny, actually. It's so funny. So you should say, I do actually use my own personal branding. I'm surprisingly funny for German. It's a bit cheeky saying that about myself, but we can be on the serious side. But may I just reassure you, even in Germany, we have really famous comedians, and pre-pandemic, we'd get together in stadiums and we laugh at jokes. So we do have a great sense of humor. Maybe it's just in hiding a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think different humor works in different countries. Like there's a lot of sarcasm and other stuff that we have in the UK that a lot of Americans just don't understand.
Yeah.
And I think that's because they've not come from culture. When you meet cultures where people are used to being kind of oppressed, so that like there's a ruling class and then there's everybody else, they tend to have sarcasm. So you would kind of say, "Oh, that's the best sweater in the world, sir," when actually you're meaning this is a terrible sweater or terrible jumper or whatever. But an American would be just, "Well, thank you for that." And it's like, "Oh, compliment. I'm just taking the I'm being sarcastic." But yeah, Greek people are very sarcastic as well, and I'm not entirely sure. I think there is an element of that in German humor, but I think it's just different countries have different. I think there are some British humor things that Germans don't get, and similarly with Americans.
Completely. I must say, I still suffer with that even after 25 years. I could be surrounded by a room full of people and I sometimes would not get the joke. I mean, it happens less and less. I guess the thing which I find hardest of all is cultural references. So, because I was brought up behind the Iron Curtain, and it was pretty limited in terms of what we had with music and movies. It was a lot from Eastern Europe and great stuff. I'm not saying not great stuff, but it means I don't have a lot of a reference point. And when you sit in a conversation, I'm saying this in jokes, it's just, I hear Bahnhof, that's all I understand. Everyone starts laughing, you sort of stand there, which is quite nice when you get together with an international crowd, because everyone is facing a similar challenge. You don't have the same reference points. You can't have these kind of in-jokes. You have to make it work in different ways. But there's something really interesting. I find that on shows of international audience, I have to be really mindful of that my sense of humor doesn't necessarily translate. So yeah, it definitely is different.
I'm definitely learning that. And Tim actually had to explain sarcasm to me in a different way, because my point of view of sarcasm is mean and demeaning. That's what I was used to. And Tim had to re-explain to me actually sarcasm. And how did you explain it to me, Tim?
Well, I mean, the trouble is there's sardonic humor, which I think is kind of what I call sarcasm a lot, where it's not really necessarily, it can be cutting though. And I think it is because of that kind of hierarchical thing in the past. So you can, the whole thing about sarcasm is you can insult somebody and then always claim that you just said it in a non-sarcastic way. It's all about tonation. And if it's that's why it is very difficult, actually, sometimes. I mean, even as a Brit, I feel like if you don't know the context about it, if somebody says, we have a tremendously organised and brilliant government, chances are in the UK, people will probably be sarcastic about not actually saying, the government's really wonderful and brilliant. And then this American person could just be like, what? Oh, it's like they've got a good government, they said so.
Yeah. And I'm used to the version where it's like that, but you're cutting someone down. So you're saying that, but you're cutting them down. And so I had to kind of learn. And then
well, I'm not even sure that really is. Well, I don't know. I need to we need to get a comedy expert. There must be a comedy professor or somebody we could get on to talk about all the different forms of comedy. But I'm not even necessarily sure that is sarcasm. So I suppose it can be, you can say it's sarcastic, but that's not all of sarcasm. You're right. There is some there is some humor that is very nasty based, and it's just abuse more than anything. But
so the humor is different between Germany, America, and the UK, and I would agree for sure.
It really is, isn't it?
Let's give you 5 minutes to talk about your business before we end up talking about some other. I know that you used to work in corporate in a big organisation.
Oh yeah.
How did you move from that into running your Wunderstars program?
Wunderstars. Well, so yeah, I worked in corporate for about 16 years, and one of like Eastern German values which was always installed in me was work hard. You know, you got to work hard. So I pretty much worked my way up in every company I was, and I started off at the Financial Times. Then I moved to the Institute of Directors, and then another UK-based organisation called the Association of Colleges, which interestingly let me travel all across the UK, because normally you tend to, when you live in London, you kind of tend to stay here, particularly if you originally from a different country, you just go back home or really on holiday. So I always loved working in marketing, and I knew when I went to university I wanted to study marketing because I had that sense of being an entrepreneur installed from my parents. I think one of the first jobs I actually had. So in Eastern Germany, and as a country, we celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve, and Santa Claus actually comes to our houses. So in our own little village, you know, we had all these Santa Clauses going around. And since I was always really tall, I was always the tallest in my class. Even though in Germany I'm not all that tall really, but I said, wow, Mum, I could do this. You know, I'm really tall. I could put on a really deep voice. So my auntie, she had a shop, so I made this little display, and then I was saying, look, you know, if you need a Santa Claus, I'm going to be really forward. Your kids are going to be scared of me, and I'm going to really listen to you as a parent, what you need to tell them. So I think I had about 7 jobs on Christmas Eve. So my mum drove me around. I was in this amazing Santa costume with this really deep voice. Kids were really scared. We had a really good year, but this was like one of my first jobs. So I always like to bring people joy. So I don't know how I got to my first job. So corporate, yes, corporate. So I was so ambitious. I remember I actually did an interview for an MD role when I was like 6 months pregnant, telling them about the long-term vision for this company, even when I was 6 months pregnant. But the thing was, when I became a mum, I realised that the whole rushing back and forth to one meeting to the next, looking after my team, going to board meetings, it wasn't what I had envisaged. So I wanted to change it, and I came a little bit angry for a while because it seemed like even just a position perhaps where I had to work for 4 days, I had to straight away take a cut in my salary. And I was like, hang on guys, you know, I've studied so hard, I've invested in myself over the years. Surely when I have less time, I ought to earn more and play on my seniority and my experience. So I knew the only way really to do that was to set up my own business. That really gave me the final kick. I'm like, no, I don't want to live my life like this, so let's set up my own business. But you know, of course, when I started, it's really hard when you come out corporate life because you're so used to wearing this professional mask and having corporate brand guidelines. You know, what should you be saying? How should you be coming across? What words should you be using? Obviously, I'm exaggerating now, but you know, corporate brand guidelines for communications can be pretty tough. And then there I was thinking, oh gosh, how do I market myself? You know, how do I become visible? Honestly, Christelle, my first website, so I was at the time I set myself up as a marketing consultant. I was totally in hiding. There was like a green and a purple laptop. So I still got some of these brand colors, but you couldn't see me. So I had to go through this whole process of becoming visible, of telling people what I was different and you know, why they should be working with me and how I could be helping them. And in essence, that's a lot of personal branding. I had to face a lot of my pain barriers. I was always very confident, but I was used to be confident on behalf of someone else. So now all of a sudden I had to be able to say what I am about. And that's really quite tricky, particularly when you're really tired and you have like a 1-year-old at home. But I did. And in many ways, that actually inspired me to launch my own program, Wunderstars, because even sometimes when you're already a little bit more established in your business, you're used to marketing your clients' businesses to promote them. But when it comes to yourself, it's a very different ballgame. So I take people through that step at their own pace. It's mostly a one-to-one program, so I can do it. And I get to do really fun things. So we start off by, you know, Christelle, you said you have an interest in stories. So we start off by defining their stories, their personal brand values, who's their audience, what do they like to share, what's their need. But then we also do things like video challenges, or we do role play for sales calls, anything where you kind of might have to step out of your comfort zone. Because often it's so much easier if you practice it. And I find I like to have fun when I'm working. Life is too short not to have fun. So, but that sense of humor also makes it easier for me to get the best out of people, because immediately when you have a rapport and you use humor, their defenses go down. And they're more willing to put themselves out there, which essentially is what you need to do when you market yourself, right? We have to do things we're not so comfortable with. It's all great fun.
Mm-hmm. Who has influenced you in your business? Kind of like who do you look to for advice, or to kind of as a teacher, mentor figure?
I guess different people at different times, right? So certainly. I remember I once saw Christelle speak on a stage. First time I saw someone speak about personal branding. And I was like, God, yeah, this makes really sense. If you want to shout your worth, if you want to build sustainable business, you have got to invest in your branding. So he was one of the first guys. And I also worked with Andrew and Pete, a content marketing duo. They were my business coaches for a while. But also I love some women like Janet Murray, really, really big in the UK. It's all about growing your business online. And I just loved it how she brought her own femininity. So I never say this really well, but how she wasn't afraid of being like a female with a lovely dress and having a really strong message. And now it's often also peers. So I would say at the moment, I gave myself a little treat. So I have a personal trainer. Actually, it's Mel Bridger, who Tim will know as well.
Oh, yeah.
And she specializes in working with busy mums such as myself. And I just love the drive she has, and how she keeps it real, and how she's gone through the whole Black Lives Matter. And obviously that's ongoing, how she supports everyone around her. So it really differs. So for me, it's never just one person who inspires me. I guess I get influenced by many people. And at the heart of it, it's also my upbringing, my parents. Oh, look, what's our lovely James saying?
Very nice off.
Oh, it's very nice. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
He's saying you both had so much there at the beginning and had so much input into getting me and him and his buzz and business growing. James was on our show. I don't know if you knew that. And he told
I know. He was so excited about it. Definitely, yeah.
Such a neat story and neat things that he's doing. And to watch him start, he explained how he expanded from the beginning to the end, and so it's neat to see that.
It's a really powerful story, right? And he keeps on like facing his own fears and pushing himself out there. So yeah, he's a great guy, definitely.
Right, I'm going to challenge you to have an example client to see how much you've watched of our shows before. Even though this is a bit of a running joke, but let's say that you had approached by this woman called Christelle, who's a llama farmer. And lots of advice on personal branding and how to do. What kind of general advice do you get, and what questions do you ask people who come to you who want to know about branding and social media, and what they should do in terms of how they brand themselves?
Yeah, so your branding is a very individual decision, right, as a business owner, but essentially it's about your audiences, right? How do you want to show up for your audience? What do you want to be known for? So I would try to understand Christelle's audience. Who's it you're working for? Who do you enjoy working with most? Who's like your commercially viable audience? What are their hopes and their dreams? And then I would ask Christelle, so how can we relate this to your story? Why did you do what you do? What is your purpose? What gets you going? What gets you out of bed in the morning? I take you through a process which is to help you to find personal brand values. And often you kind of need to dig a bit deeper. It's not the sort of thing you just do like in half an hour. It's really, you have to ask yourself some really deep questions, and maybe sometimes some uncomfortable questions, and encourage my clients to get feedback from their clients, from their friends as well. And then we pull this together, and then we come up with some stories which come back from their life and relates now to their audience. And often it's really giving people the tools. So I would say, so tell me, what's your business like? How much time do you cover for your marketing? How much time do you need for everything else? Is that enough? When I say Christelle comes back, so let me come, I'm really busy with the llamas, they're quite demanding. I've got 1 hour a week to work on this. When we will put together a program which will fit into that hour. Because I think it's so important that you have a goal, you explore this together, and then you plan with small achievable actions, and you work towards your goal. And the biggest thing I bring to my clients is that sense of focus. Because God, guys, we all know it, right? Like you see your latest course, and I love a course. You see a membership, you see a conference, and you speak, and you're like, I've got to do this, and I've got to do that, and blah, blah, blah. but actually, where do we need to go to and what will get us there, and really focus on that. So often it's a case of bringing people back to, okay, so we said we wanted to specialize in this kind of content. Where are we at? Have we got a plan? Are we doing it? Are we doing the right thing? So it's a combination of these things. But I guess with llamas, I would be it'd be so interesting to see what brought you to having llamas. What's your relationship to llamas? How does it make other people feel? And how can you bring that out in your storytelling?
Mm-hmm. And how personal?
Llamas, by the way.
No, I don't know. I feel like we might need a T-shirt now, Tim, because Tim is a little bit on this llama farm thing. We need a T-shirt.
You're pushing me a bit with the llamas.
I used Maggie the llama farmer in a presentation I did lately.
Oh, right. It should be easy to find on Instagram. I have to match it on Facebook, right? Because it's such a distinct interest.
I might do it as like sort of use a bit of clip art for llama. Clip art of a woman feeding a llama. So yeah, she's Maggie the llama farmer.
I don't have a really good history with llamas. We have on our local farm, we have 5 llamas, and one of them spat at me like really badly. Didn't like my vibes. Frankly, I didn't like its vibes afterwards either.
This is the ongoing example we're using is llama farms for guests who come on. But I have a question for you along the same lines of what you were just saying. How personal do we get with our brand?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Christelle. So the danger of not getting personal is that you end up being really vanilla, right? And you totally blend into the background and there's nothing distinct about you. So I always like to work with my clients, okay, let's just figure out your stories, and then you talk to your family. What stories are you happy to share? Because you are the business, right? So, people want to get to know you. How else are they going to build up trust with you if you don't let them in? But to what extent you have to decide that. You notice I go on a lot in my branding about being from Eastern Germany. This is how Tim met the half. For a year long, I took him a lot on the stages with me because I built it into my storytelling. Mm-hmm. But frankly, this is the sort of thing which to a lot of people from Eastern Germany, they had similar experience. There isn't enough. It's not much. It's not very personal, really the essence of it. So I was quite comfortable sharing about it and, going quite deep on that because it's not something too personal. So you have to make it personal enough so that it's distinct, because there's in every sector we face there is competition out there. I always think there's enough cake to go around, meaning there's always enough business for everyone. But what makes you stand out? What makes you like the magnet, the person people will notice, and your personalities, your brands, your stories, a huge part of that. It's actually the best tool you have because that's what makes you unique. So I know there's often that discussion, should you have it separate, should you link it? I believe you should definitely link it to your personal brand values and your business brand, because you are the founder, you are the business, you shape the culture, you shape the ethos of what's happening. So it's really important to link it completely.
Is there some danger in being personal at all? Is there something you would warn us about in going personal?
Yeah, I guess I get this question, like, what's okay to say, Nicole, and what should I not be saying? So I've got 2 golden rules. One of them started off as, what would your mother say if she saw that on social? But then not everyone's mum is on social. So imagine your prospective client sees what you're doing on social, reads it. Would you feel happy with that? Is that the right message you want to give out? So for example, if you are like a virtual assistant, and there's so many amazing virtual assistants on there, I think it's okay to have an off day. But if you go on social about how you hate organizing and how you just miss all your deadlines because you had a bad month, I'm not sure that is the message you need to get out for your prospective clients, because clearly you want to instill confidence, right? So that's one of the things. Always think about what would you be okay with your prospective client to see. And then the other thing, which is I just recently experienced. So as you know, on Instagram, there are now Reels, these fun 15-second video slots. A lot of people use it to dance, to do like 3 tips. So I went right on there. Actually, right, I'm personal branding coach, right? So I did the dancing one. I walk along Mill Hill, really small place, northwest London, and my hairdresser comes storming, Nicole, I've seen your video. And I was just so dead embarrassed because I've never seen you dancing. I didn't know you follow me on my business Instagram. So I think that's another nice measure to have. Would I be comfortable with people who know me to see that, people who really know me? And those 2 broad guidelines, obviously, it will depend on your unique circumstances, right? if you perhaps, let's say you have a really somber kind of industry, it might not be appropriate to let your personality shine through in heaps and bounds. But in most jobs, it is. So just think about what would my prospective clients say. You know, does this help to build a positive image? Because it's all about first impression, isn't it? And building that trust, and for people then they have a need for your services to remember you because you stood out with engaged in contact, and then they come to you, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. You made a good point too that I wonder if you would expand on it. So often there's competition in business, and everyone we're bringing on here is so supportive of each other and they celebrate each other. But you pointed out that there's enough to go around. And I think that's such an important message. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I truly believe there's enough to go around, because I think it's a lot to do with mindset, isn't it? And there's enough to go around because different people will look for different people. So, for example, I did the whole corporate thing. And if I still had to, I could still reel it out. But actually, I love being able to be more casual, to bring my humor in. This doesn't suit everyone. I don't want it to suit everyone. I wanted to suit the kind of people where, you know, when my husband walks by my office, he says, Nicole, I can't believe this is your work. I hear you laughing so much, because I generally get on with my clients because they have a sense of humor I tap into, and vice versa. You know, it's great energy. So I think it is so important that you believe there's, you know, I know, for example, obviously through lockdown and the global pandemic, many businesses have really suffered. I don't know anyone who hasn't, and for some people it's worse than for others, but I still believe it's really important to remain visible, because, you know, things will eventually go back to normal. It will be a different kind of normal, but I've seen so many businesses now transitioning from in-person services to online services. So we have to be adaptable, and we have to continue marketing. Yeah, I've always said, you know, because I've always had this mindset, glass is half full rather than half empty, and saying there's enough cake to go around is part of that. And I genuinely believe that completely.
So I'm going to go back to non-business stuff again, but this is kind of actually, I think there might be a parallel between what happened in East Germany after the wall came down, and like all the integration and reunification with Germany, to what's going to happen in terms of recovery after. So could you sort of explain how society and things felt after the Berlin Wall came down? I mean, they said that, and I'm sure this wasn't true in East Germany, but the USSR, they thought they were the best country in the world, and then when it all collapsed, they found out actually they weren't.
Yeah, we were really brainwashed, Tim. It's terrible. I mean, news are always being manipulated, but it was particularly bad in Eastern German countries. Yeah. So I know my own story. The first thing happened to both of my parents. They both lost their jobs, and that security and that life plan they had. Now, they were quite entrepreneurial, so they did things like planting fields of strawberries or tulips or asparagus, because those were the things which were in short supply. So they actually could get quite a decent rate to when they went to sell it on the markets. So they did that in addition to their day-to-day jobs. So they lost their jobs, and the whole economy collapsed because it wasn't done in a sustainable way. Do you know, I remember, I like to tell this story, and it's mostly true. When I was born, my parents literally ordered a new Trabant because the supply and demand in Eastern Germany was so out of sync that you couldn't get a new car much sooner. It would take like 18 years. Because they just didn't really, a lot of things were subsidized, you know, there was a lot of influence, as you just said, from the Soviet Union. And yes, you know, I was brought up to believe that obviously everything Lenin did was amazing. Everyone behind the Iron Curtain is the enemy, you know, capitalists, and they're like really bad. But I was lucky in a way that we had access to Western TV stations, so I kind of was a little bit more educated than people who might have been in the south of Germany, where there was nothing. But one thing which really stood out to me, I always knew when I grew up, there's certain things I was allowed to mention to my parents at home when we were having dinner, and I was never allowed to mention them outside of our home, because actually it would have put my parents in danger. And it wasn't anything too controversial, but you know, you couldn't ever criticize politicians or how things were done in your local council. You always had to agree with things. So we had pretty tricky times, tricky times. And, you know, if you think about it, my parents lost their jobs, and that happened to everyone in the whole country. And then you lose your livelihood. That is really, really tough. But I guess when everyone is in the same boat, it must be slightly easier to deal with. But yeah, I just remember all the companies collapsed.
Yeah. So let's try and put a nice spin on that. Presumably, situation is, well, maybe not right now, but recently the East German, like, how is East Germany now compared to West Germany? Has it come up to the same sort of level? Is there still a difference there?
Yeah, I mean, do you know, interesting. I just actually went back to a place where I was born. I just come back actually 2 weeks ago, and I promised that I had to postpone one of our dates because I spontaneously went to Germany.
Yeah.
And the village that I was born, a lot of the young people have moved out. They now rely on tourism, and there are some companies who have really established themselves. So I guess across lots of Europe, there is economic difficulties right now, and it is going to be only worse with the pandemic. So in terms of difference, people have definitely grown more together. They've become more of the same as generations are brought up a similar way. So I don't know. It's hard to tell. I don't know where it's going to end up. I think everyone struggles right now with the uncertainty.
Mm.
Oh, look, there's James saying, thanks for a comparison, Tim. I now have an image of a Hoff jumping over a rising tower, Russian kid with a case containing a vaccine that gets ejected from a passenger juice last minute. Here we go. That's a British sense of humor.
I love the Nightrider theme music, but unfortunately we can't play it. So.
Oh my goodness. Did you watch the Nightrider? Was that a favorite show? Was it the Nightrider that did it, or was it, what was the beach one? The
Baywatch. I think it was a bit of both, to be fair. A bit of both. Do you know, I always had this hunger to travel because it's really frustrating. When I think in my whole childhood I went down to Prague 9 times. It's a beautiful city, but 9 times. And, you know, when you see all these Californian beaches and wow, you know, the palm trees, the turquoise blue sea. And yeah, it was a bit of both, because definitely with a fancy car, that was pretty cool as well.
Didn't they let you go to the beaches in Bulgaria or whatever? Or was that like out of the too far?
Well, yeah, I never got. My parents did get to go, but it wasn't quite the same. It didn't have that glamour.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I traveled with my husband to California. We did a road trip. I think we had like 3 weeks. So, I mean, it's only a small part of California we saw, but I was just blown away. People are so friendly, the food is so gorgeous, and the scenery, you know, wow, Lake Tahoe and the national parks and the beaches, Highway 101. It's amazing. I'll definitely do it again one day.
Yeah, you have to come down to we're here for social media world, I guess, but marketing world, but come down to San Diego and hang out, do a tour. But so have you met the Hass? Have you met David Hasselhoff?
Well, I remember at the time I was working still at the Financial Times in South Bank, and it's a very popular area in London. Globe Theatre's there, Millennium Bridge, and serving coffee in a local Starbucks on my break. And David Hasselhoff, I think it was like 100 meters away from me. Oh. And I jumped up. Oh, it's David Hasselhoff, because I just had this. I don't normally get starstruck at all, but because it was for my whole childhood. And he was playing in London and a theatre play, and I was considering going. I did it in the end because I had to close it down, as sadly all of the theatres at the moment cannot show any shows. But no, I haven't met him. He's still very popular in Germany. He had like a song out with like a German singer called Blümchen, and he's in the charts. We love him over there. It's really not just me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's his whole pop career that he's famous for in Germany.
Yeah, I mean, he could fill stadiums in Germany, you know.
He had like one hit in the UK, but he's had like multiple platinum albums, and he's associated with the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a little piece somewhere of the Berlin Wall. It's from the Checkpoint Charlie Museum, because obviously if you see something your whole life, something you want to climb and overcome, and people die when they're trying to escape, it's got a meaningful. If you think about it, it's only 30 years ago.
Yeah,
that's nothing, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, let's like 1986. Let's go a bit earlier. Did you hear anything about the Chernobyl incident or anything in East Germany, or was it all just hushed up?
It was very hushed up, Yeah, we only heard the news we were meant to, yeah. I know in Western Germany it was much more in the news, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, even in the UK we were kind of like, because there was this supposed to be this massive radioactive cloud that
Yeah.
missed the UK.
Yeah, moving towards us
Go
all,
over
yeah.
Eastern Germany. So
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, so they kept it hush hush in Germany. Did you
Yeah.
heard it though? But it wasn't.
No, it was. I don't actually. I mean, I know it from looking back, but I don't actually remember. Have I gone frozen?
yeah, you have. Well, no, you've moved again now.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I probably said the wrong thing. Someone listened to
It's
this.
probably that
Heading up
radioactive stuff from the Chernobyl coming through and in the equipment.
So, do you know what the other thing I remember about growing up is that Western Germany had a great awareness of environmental issues.
Mm.
And that's something in Eastern Germany we just didn't do. So I went on demonstrations for Greenpeace and all sorts of things, and we really embraced it, and rightly so, right? But I remember that, God, that's so different. You know, we can actually go and demonstrate for a real cause, which will really make a difference, rather than just saying, oh, the Soviet Union is so brilliant all the time, or the people, the workers are so brilliant. So yeah, so definitely a sense of environmentalism, that was really big when I was growing up, and then the wall had come down. But yeah, it was at a time, I was 13, so you can imagine, you know, you go into between different schools, there was so much happening. I think a lot of it I just phase out as well, because sometimes it just happens and you just have to deal with all the changes, but actually not totally taking it all in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think in some ways, Tim was alluding to this a little bit. I think, Tim, what we're seeing with lockdown, worldwide COVID, and everything, it somewhat parallels what you went through with the Berlin Wall and having things to overcome. What message would you have for the world right now? Because you have such an enthusiastic spirit, and it's very powerful, I think. So what message would you have for the world in this moment right now?
You know, things will always get better again. And there's lots of things which are completely out of our control right now, right? So use the things which are right around you to get your energy from and to make yourself feel better. I know, for example, Tim, you go for walks, don't you? I share a passion for walking, and sometimes just being in nature really sort of re-energizes me again. And sometimes I think we just have to accept that we're going to be down, right? And that's okay too. But there will always be new beginnings, and we will get used to this new normal.
Yeah. And somebody was getting rung by the.
Can you hear what?
David Hasselhoff was clearly ringing to.
It wasn't me. Look, I was so uber efficient before I came on. I messaged Tim before. I said, Tim, don't worry, I'm definitely going to be there. It's the time I usually put my son to bed. My husband is working tonight. So, you know, I was sort of sitting here, please, Alex, don't come into my room. Every now and then, Christelle, he makes an appearance, and I just can't help him sending him back. I did switch on my phone on silent. I did do that, and I did check that my laptop was plugged in, because you know what it's like with going live. Like, things just tend to go wrong.
Yeah.
Like the delivery man turns up, or you forgot something. Your light comes out. It's just.
Well, I managed to accidentally eject myself from the stream before last. And it was because it was so hot in London. It was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. How you guys kept it out, honestly, well done, because it was so hot. It really just killed the joy of doing anything, right? It's because I've spent all this time mucking about doing intros and outro videos. I have to press about 15 buttons on StreamYard to make it go in the right order. And sometimes I've got it wrong. You see in some of the old shows, you'll see the intros cut off because I went live too late. And other ones, it's like there's a weird bit where people are just sitting talking for a bit, and it's waiting to go right. And then there's press the button. I think that it's all perfect every week. It's boring, right? We don't want perfect.
Yeah.
We don't want perfect. And I think that's definitely one thing to take away from marketing our own businesses. Right now, we're all on the same page. No company has got any fancy offices, videographers, editing suits. It's all really real. We are in our homes, and everyone is. So it's okay to share that side of ourselves. People want to see it. I must say, I don't want any more screenshots of like Zoom meetings on LinkedIn. Gets a bit boring after a while. But it's okay to let the world in, right? And I think it's definitely an opportunity.
Yeah,
because people are so much more.
I've been surprised how terrible a lot of the Zoom coverage has been from like big media organisations that are used to doing it. Otherwise, I think it's because the small business people are more used to doing lives and doing other things. We've not got the terrible like Zoom where they've got like their iPod sort of thing like stuck up against their face, or they've got like, or even people with phones. I've seen people with phones going like this on live broadcasts for like media organisations, and you're like, oh, what?
But it's because we practice it for so long, right? I mean, none of us started off looking this relatively confident on a live show, right? I mean, I've been practicing this, I think, for like 3 years. I was terrified, and I still get like nervous, but it's not as bad as it used to be. So we're kind of ahead in that way, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, that's true, actually. I mean, you forget how how nervous you were doing things before. I mean, that's one of the weird things about live video. I mean, I know it's probably James watching us at the moment, and the total audience, but we got replays, and you don't know, actually. You know, like this, one of our show, we could end up, the Dalai Lama could come on and say that he wants to be on the show, because Christelle said she wanted the Dalai Lama.
I keep tagging my heroes, and so far I haven't gotten a response.
And then suddenly we could get like 50,000 views, and then everybody go back through all the old shows, and what's that amazing Eastern European woman?
What's she going on about David Hasselhoff and Fast Car? Do you know the other thing which I never let go of? It's so this sounds really like I'm making it up, but I'm not. So fruits, exotic fruits, I say exotic fruits in inverted commas, like bananas, oranges, kiwis, melons, were absolutely rationed. So I remember, so we're a family of 3. We had like 2 or 3 different shops we could go to. They asked us how many people were in our family. So like I would say 3, and for each you would get maybe 2 bananas, and that was it. And you know, over the years you think, oh my God, did I just make this up? And I didn't. I had this chat with my auntie, and she said to me, yeah, we had this big function. All I wanted was like a white, simple blouse. That's all I wanted to wear, you know, but I couldn't get it. But as soon as I mentioned where I worked and that I had access to bananas and oranges, I was presented with 2 or 3 different blouses. So there was this whole black market going on. You know, you kind of traded to get certain things. And I was like, God, I'm so glad you tell me this, because you forget about these details. I mean, how easy is it nowadays to get a white blouse, right? I mean, come on. You can, like that, you get it delivered like the same day. But in those days, we just couldn't buy it. Or whether it was like a set of cutlery or just like a spare window. Yeah, you know, this is one thing actually, because up to what you were saying earlier, I think we're all more resilient and adaptable than we actually give ourselves credit for.
Yeah.
And we will all come out of this, and you know, hopefully in 10 years' time, this will have absolutely defined us, and we tell our grandkids or whoever, and we were like before the pandemic and after the pandemic. And I'm sure part of it is, my God, we were more resilient than we thought we would, and actually we can do this.
Yeah, I think that's going to be true. I think there will be a lot of personal lessons from people from lockdown. I mean, I think there will be some people who will go totally to pieces during lockdown.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's always a bit of a survivor bias in all of these things. But I mean, I think a lot of people will learn resilience, so to say.
Yeah, just by doing, right? Just by doing.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear the different perspectives too. You know, we're each in our own bubble wherever we are. And for me, it's so fascinating to hear your perspective, Nicole, and hear Tim's perspective every week, and be able to hear something outside of the US. And I don't know if that's the same for you, but it brings hope in a new way, because we get to hear a new story or a new perspective. So I find it very inspiring to speak to you, Nicole, and people from around the world.
Because we get so stuck in our own ways, right? And unless we have these conversations, this is the beauty of it. I mean, look, you're sitting in San Diego. I mean, you're miles away from me. It's like an 8 hours time difference. So Tim and I be like neighbors, practically speaking. But we can have these conversations in real time, and it's not a beautiful. I mean, it's not a beautiful thing. I think we should just be grateful here for a moment, right? Because years ago this wasn't possible. You wouldn't have had these kind of open conversations where you actually forget that we're in front of a live audience, right? You kind of, because you just end up chatting with your friends. So yeah, I know, because I find it really fascinating too, and I loved it being at the San Diego Marketing World, just seeing the whole sort of take on social media and how it's used to promote your business, and from different sides. So yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, but whenever we have the opportunity again, I think, you know, traveling will be on everyone's agendas again.
I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day, and it's like, I know that Social Media Examiner, who run it, have been laying people off and stuff. So, I mean, I think one of the things about the lockdown and this whole period is we really can't assume that anything is going to exist afterwards.
Yeah.
So there may not be another social media marketing world. I think there probably will be, to be fair. I don't think they're in that bad a state. But I think there's going to be loads of opportunities for people to maybe start new conferences and new events and the rest of it. There will be because whenever there's a gap in an industry, so hotels and restaurants and conferences and all these things have been really affected, there will be lots of businesses that go out of business, sadly. But there will also be loads of opportunities for new people to do that activity or to do a conference or whatever. So it's not necessarily going to be as terrible as we necessarily think. It's not like conferences and restaurants and hotels are going to be banned from henceforth.
I say it's that adaptability, right? I work with a physio and I helped him to build up his personal brand to make him stand out. And he's now taking his entire business online because he has this method where he can actually do things via Zoom. But it takes a lot of guts, right, to learn new things. But you see someone starting and like 3 months later, they're completely used to it. I also work with a photographer, and luckily she can now see people again. But there might be a time when she can't, so she's exploring ways of helping people to take their own photos. So you've just got to, I think the reality is when we run a business, we never quite know what's around the corner. Now, obviously, this is huge, and none of us have ever seen anything like it. But again, if you just start small, you think, okay, what do I like doing? Where do I see a need in the market? And then you build it up from there. And just be really brave, right? I think we all just got to be really brave and inspire confidence. And in the UK, they're doing this great thing at the moment where, for example, the restaurants, from Monday to Friday, you go to a restaurant and you can get 50% discount. So this is how the government is supporting restaurants. And that's a great initiative. So if we can, in our small community, start supporting the smaller businesses, right? I mean, you in San Diego, it's such a beautiful restaurant. So if we all start going out there again, get the economy going? Is that the thing to say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting since you say that. I find that the businesses who support each other, the small businesses that support each other, they tend to do better. It seems like, at least the ones I'm watching. So if one small restaurant, locally owned restaurant, is supporting another locally owned restaurant and it's visible, it really feels like they do better in some regard.
Yeah, because we care about our communities, right? And you've got to share that on your socials. Share it because people want to know. Exactly. Sorry, Tim, I interrupted you. Apologies.
Oh no, don't worry about that. It's like, you don't have to be German here.
Just go all formal now.
The reason why it works a lot of the time is that they have the same audience, the same ideal customers, and it's like, however much you like a restaurant, you're not going to necessarily want to be eating in there 7 days a week.
Right.
So if you hear about another local restaurant, they share their Instagram followers and they cross promote, it's like, well, people might go to the other one as well. It's not, competition isn't necessarily as hard and fast as you think, because its time can be like, now, admittedly, if they share, they have 30 restaurants in a street, then that becomes much more of an issue. But most of these restaurants aren't doing anything on social at all. So it's like, if two of them are sharing each other's Instagram posts, then that's going to be ideal for them. Yeah, that's my pedestal talk.
Go on, heighten yourself.
I need to, but I keep breaking those office chairs. I've just done a normal chair at the moment.
Because I'm nearly as tall as Tim. Nearly.
Are you really?
Yeah,
I think you're like 6 foot.
I'm 1.80 m. I think that's 5'11", right? So yeah, I'm nearly as tall.
Tim,
to be honest, but yeah, I know Nicole's tall.
Well, I walked next to Tim. I did walk next to Tim, so he's experienced walking next to me. How was that, Tim?
Yeah, I think you must be just normal. I didn't make any mental reference to your height whatsoever. So
I'm 5'1". I am 5'1", so there's quite a height difference. But
yeah, but you're not short enough that I was sort of like down there. Maybe you need high heels or something.
No, she doesn't have to.
I used to. I don't do it anymore. Well, Nicole, okay, so now, would you say now is the perfect time to actually explore new options online? Get creative.
Yeah, because if not now, when? I mean, I think there's always like, if not now, when, right? If you run your own business, if you don't do it now, when will you do it? But now in particular, where people are more open to have their experiences delivered to them in a different way. There's opportunities for companies who tap into that, who, oh gosh, people quite like that convenience of being at home and they do certain things. You know, like I do it with my personal trainer. It's lovely to see her via Zoom. I'm so used to it. Actually, I find it quite refreshing because obviously I'm not doing the client work because I'm her client. It's like, yay. So I think now is the time to experiment. And you know, the beauty of digital marketing, social media is you find out really soon what's working for you and what is not working, right? So this is definitely the time to upskill yourself. Don't try to do everything at once. I always say, you know, have like an 8-week sort of project plan. Like every 8 weeks, do something new. That I think on top of all the normal stuff, I think that's manageable. I did struggle a bit with people say, oh, this is the time to learn something new, to do this and that. And you know, when you're a working parent and all of a sudden you don't have any childcare because all the schools are closed. But the reality is that you're already struggling to just focus and achieve more with the little time you have. So you have to make it fit your own circumstances, absolutely. But now is the time, like ever, to try out new things, absolutely, to know where you want to head to and have your small, actionable, achievable actions. By the way, that's not a saying from me. It's from the lovely Lee Matthew Jackson. I have to just give him a shout out. He's always very much about small, achievable actions lead to big change. And I think that's such a nice mantra. I hear him sitting on my shoulder quite often saying that to me.
Yeah. Well, it's those small incremental things that often make the big difference.
Right, because you're already moving towards something, and once you've done that, you come over the initial, oh my God, I don't know what to do, I'm scared. You have just a little bit of success. The next step is easier, right? Do you know, I remember the first time I went and spoke at an event, Cambridge Social Media event here in the UK. I think I had about sleepless nights for nearly 6 months. And wow, that was bad. Great talk, by the way. I really loved it. Tim was talking as well. We had an amazing time. It was really well received. But then the next time I went on stage, which wasn't that long after that, it was only like 3 months, and then it went down to 10 nights, and now it might be 2 or 3 nights, if not less. So our zone of comfort,
used to it,
we push it out, don't we? So it's really important to do that. And it's the same when you learn something new for your business. I guess that's one of the exciting things about being a business owner. You can decide what you're going to learn, right? What matters to you.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we lose one of our clients, but we have another one. I think it's much tougher if you not face redundancy. We have a lot of redundancies now in the UK. And that's really tough because your whole being is focused on that one job, right? And all of a sudden you have to find something new. But it's doable. You know, we've all done it. But in a way, it's nice when you run your own business. You know, hopefully you have a diverse portfolio of clients. So you work around it.
Well, I remember somebody saying I think it was Dan Miller on a podcast, was saying that if you work for somebody else, you've got one client, and that one client decides whether they want you or not. If you work for yourself, you can have multiple clients. And that's a way better situation to be in.
Absolutely.
That's true. I mean, there are some people who work basically just for one client, but they're probably in the worst world of all, but it's... So I'm mindful. The trouble is this, like, I'm thinking, oh, Nicole's German, so I have to finish exactly.
Christelle is hilarious.
No, I actually did quite. I mean, I have sort of a little bit of the organisational kind of like literally 10, 15 years ago, I would have been like, oh no, my God, we have to finish exactly on the hour. But on this show, sometimes we've gone like 20 minutes over. I think Christelle's got a little bit sort of the Italian kind of like, yeah, we'll get there, kind of. We'll start the way we start.
Is it Italian?
But yeah, wow. I mean, that's the stereotype of Southern Europe, basically Spain, Portugal, right?
Relaxedness, but maybe that's why you make such a good combination. Oh, look! Did you see James' last comment?
I was reading it. Sorry, I wasn't spacing out. I was reading his comment because it was so sweet.
Oh, Tim, bring it on! It's so nice of him. That's so much fun.
Nice. Well, it's funny because we noticed that you start a conversation, and sometimes you don't get to the really good part of the conversation until quite a bit in, and suddenly we realize the conversation is powerful right now, and so we don't want to cut it off. There's so much more to talk about.
We are 10 seconds over the hour.
Yeah.
Well, I tried to like bring it up as straight away. You know, Tim had warned me.
How did you warn her?
And it must really help that, you know, obviously I know Tim, so we have lots of chats, don't we? So we don't have that all must be all really, really polite to each other. And I know, like when I watch shows, it's much nicer when people dig deep and, you know, you really share some things as opposed to being like really on the surface where everyone is on the surface. You know, we want to have some real stories. So hopefully it is.
I mean, the good thing about this show, and you could argue it's the bad thing, because if we were a bit more focused on particular topics, we could easily get sponsors. But we just talk about whatever the hell we like, and that's why it makes it a bit more watchable in some ways. But
I'll definitely be sharing it with my community. I didn't know so much how to share it beforehand because I didn't know what to say to people, what it would be, but now I know.
We're just having coffee and we're chatting. It's like sitting down over coffee, chatting and sharing.
I mean, it's funny actually. No, well, we are going over it. So if your husband comes in with a big stick and pulls you out or something, then he says, "We must go. It's 5 past. We're supposed to be in. It's on our plan."
Who's doing what?
No, yeah, but I noticed I've been trying to create a course finally after all these years, not about self-publishing, but something different. But the funny thing is, right in the introduction, I did the introduction video, and now I'm going to re-record it because I've learned so much about what I wanted to say in the intro that you should always record the intro at the end. It's like with a book, you should generally write the introduction last. Because if you try and write it first, you don't know what to say. So that was just a comment on your...
no, it's true. I do the same with my vlogs. I always do the selling bit, the pitch, the intro, like right at the end, because then I know completely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Tim, do I ask the question? Do I ask the end show question? Are we ready for that?
Oh my God, I don't know if I am. That'll make me nervous.
No, it's not.
Is this the question you keep asking people at the end of the show, which I presume is in the
Are we at the end?
Yeah, well, yeah, we are at the ending, yeah.
Okay, the first end question is, what does the board say behind your head, Tim?
Hang on. It says just do something, which I think is appropriate in the current situation.
Just do something. Absolutely, I like it. Just do it.
That's every week he has a new message for us, which is sometimes I forget to ask, and I'm like, oh, we missed the message. And then the last question is, where can our friends find you? Where in social media are you?
So the best channel right now to find me is Instagram. You will find me there with some videos, with some personal branding and general productivity tips. And my Instagram handle is @lollipop, _social. So lollipop is LOLLIPOP_social. I'm sorry it's taken me so long to say it. I have been up since 5 o'clock this morning.
You're queuing for bananas.
Motherhood continues being fun. But I didn't want to tell you this earlier on because I didn't want you to worry about my energy levels. I hope I brought it out here.
No.
So yes, I would love to connect with your community on Instagram @lollipop_social. Any questions you guys have, on the replay, just tap me into the post. Always really, really happy to help, of course.
Yeah. So I think that's the end of the show. So thank you so much for being on, Nicole.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's so nice to meet you both, getting to know you, especially Christelle. And I really appreciate you having me as a guest. I hope it wasn't the last time.
I hope you come back. We loved hearing your story, and you have so much to share. And then I want to say thank you also to James for popping in and having so many good comments and being such a cheerleader.
Absolutely. James is fantastic. And anyone looking for an amazing video editor, get in touch with James. He has got so many skills and he's such fun to work with.
So thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, Christelle.
This is terrifying for me.
I've made more money in the last 3 years than I did in the previous 7.
Cliche shit,